Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Brooke Mitchell, and today's webinar is Video Premiere and Q&A, Heart of Gold, a Botswana Safari Story with Expedition Leader Lets Kamogelo, filmmaker Justin Sullivan, and video editor Andrew Christofil. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, Brooke.
Awesome.
So great to be here.
Oh, we are so excited to have all of you present. All right, so let's not wait any longer. I will go ahead and pull up the film for all of us to watch. All right, here we go.
The best time of the morning to hear bird calls is just before sunrise. Hear the fish eagles on the background, the white-browed robin chirp, hippos calling. I feel my most energy just before sunrise. That energy tells me how my day is gonna be like. My energy is always high in the morning. It's a great feeling. Ready for action.
Okay. Ready for action. Here we go.
Let's. What are you guys going to see today?
A lot. My first memory of seeing a wild animal date back to when my uncle became a guide. I checked myself in to his working place. It was quite a mission because my mom didn't want me to go, but my uncle said, no, just let him come. He needs to see where I'm staying and what I do. And it was the first time I saw an elephant. That was a dream come true. It was indeed a dream come true. And that itself, I think it was also evolved my interest of working in the tourism industry. To work in such pristine environment, going to these wild places and still call it a job means the world to me. And not even once in the last 17 years that I've taken that opportunity for granted. Not even once.
Wow, the whole pride, eh? The whole pride. And tiny cups. Let's go to the tiny cups. You see the little cups? Way further. You see them? Wow.
My guests always ask me about the relationship we have with the animals. I always explain to them that when we park the vehicle, when we see them, we do consider that comfort zone. But then at the same time, I still get astonished and surprised about the relationship we have with the animals. It's so complex. I mean, think about the vehicle with guests 5-10 meters away from a pride of lions, and they're sitting there comfortably as if you are not even there. That shows that we were meant to coexist. I have not just a purpose, but a great purpose. My greatest purpose is to impact knowledge in people. In fact, this particular termite is called the fungi termites because they have a symbiosis relationship with fungi. I want them to love everything because part of the experience is to fill up the puzzle. I want to show you all these animals and explain to you how they interrelate to each other within the ecosystem that we are in. Every sighting is a great sighting. That's how I say it.
You see it? There is one right behind. If you stand up and look right behind that leg, you see another croc.
How is that you see that?
How did I see that? That is why I'm your expedition leader.
You know, the greatest lesson that I've learned in my life, I learned it from my grandfather. He says to me, the business that I want you to invest in is investing in people. He said, you got to have the love for people, the trust for people, be kind, be nice, have a gold heart. I think I'm making a great impact in people's life. It's always a fulfilling moment every day at dinner time when my guests say, let's thank you a lot for a beautiful day. It means everything to me. As an expedition leader, you are not just a guide. I want my guests to have the experience of their life. Meeting guests for the first time, you more or less like strangers, but you easily connect and become one family. And when they leave, that's the sad part. But what is important is the memories we have built together that will last forever.
Wow. Is that not a more moving, touching film? Oh, I think it's impossible not to be smiling the entire time. Your smile is so infectious. So let's get to the question, interview, conversation part of this webinar. I am so excited to chat with all three of you about this beautiful film and how it came together. So of course, we need to start with you. You did talk a little bit about your background and that beautiful film. Could we go back to that a little bit? Could you explain your background a little bit further and what was the process that you went through to become a guide? And did you ever consider doing anything else other than guiding?
The whole idea of I becoming a guide started back when I was in high school. I wanted to work in the tourism sector, but I wasn't too sure exactly where in the tourism industry. But fortunately, I had an uncle who was a guide, and I had the opportunity to visit him. So that ignited the interest of I becoming a guide. And I went to college. While at college, I did some voluntary work at an education center outside Mokoli Nature Reserve. And it's one of the nature reserve that was once visited by the former US President, President W. Bush. I was so proud to be there, knowing that he has been to that nature reserve. I've never looked back ever since I became a guide. And I remember there was a time that I even thought about quitting my job. And my daughter at the time, she was 6 years, and she talked me into it. And she said she can't think about me doing something that I will enjoy better than being a guide. So I stayed in the guiding industry up to this day.
Oh, beautiful. And we even just got a comment that one of your past guests traveled with you in 2017 and that you gave her a life-changing trip. So already we're having your fans come in. How exciting. Oh, great. So, of course, a beautiful film like this can't happen if there's not somebody behind the camera recording these beautiful scenes. So, Justin, could you share with us your background and why did you decide to go in filmmaking? Is this nature wildlife stuff your specialty?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm a full-time conservation filmmaker. But I started out as a photographer focusing on wildfires. South Africa has very similar habitat to, parts of California. And so I spent 5 years documenting wildfires and just general like contemporary issues in South Africa. And I think, yeah, just as a deep desire to want to tell more complex and just deeper stories, I think moving from a photographer to a filmmaker was kind of like a natural progression. And I have a deep love for the bush and for animals and birds, and so I'm really in my element at the moment. So yeah, I guess that's a bit of my background, and obviously making this film, I think let's it was such a breeze working with him, and really it was an incredible experience.
Did you two know each other beforehand, or did you show up and get to know each other?
Yeah, so we actually met, I think 2 years before, right? When I came down for the electric safari vehicle. So I think I was doing another job for NatHab, and Let's and I met. Let's and I actually had an interview, and it was funny during that interview. I remember saying to Let's, I was like, brother, I really hope I get to come back here one day and do a story on you. So when I eventually got the call to say you're going to Botswana and we're going to do a story on Let's, I was just like, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen.
That's really cool then that you two already had a little bit of a history together. You've already had that. So I'm sure it made the film process a little easier than just like, here, I got a camera in your face. Um,
Yeah.
but I would love to go back to you for a second. So, in your opinion, what makes the Okavango Delta so special to you personally? What it is about that ecosystem that you love to share with people?
What's so special about the Okavango Delta is because it's the only inland delta in the world, and also because of its geology, geographical location, the diverse habitat that are found within the Okavango Delta. Is what makes the Delta such a special place. I always tell my guests that if you come from Lenyanti, you fly to the Okavango Delta, it feels like you are in a different country. It doesn't feel like you are still within the same country. That's how diverse the habitat is. And the Delta does support a great deal of biodiversity of wildlife, flora, and fauna. And also, what I like about it is that it does support the local community because of the conservation project that we do within the Delta that are ideal for the local community so that they benefit from the Delta as the custodian of the land.
Could you actually go a little further into that? Obviously, we NAHA believes in, conservation through exploration. So, could you elaborate a little further? What are the top conservation issues that might be going on in Botswana and the Okavango Delta? And is tourism helping with those issues too? Could you just maybe educate us on this stuff?
I would say the most conservation area is obviously protecting the wildlife, and we're very very fortunate that our government have been able to protect at least 42% of land for wildlife and conservation. With most of that, lies within the Okavango Delta. Um, um, we had the epic predators that you can think of: the lions, the leopard, the cheetah, African wild dogs. And most of our guests, when they come into the Okavango Delta, the African wild dog or the painted dogs is one of the species that they really want to see. And last season, I can't think of any of my guests that left without seeing the African wild dog. Because if you miss them in Lenyanchi, you stand a better chance of seeing them in the Okavango. Otherwise, at Gomoti, which is part of the Delta, is on the far eastern part of the Okavango Delta. Hence, I say it does provide a biodiversity of wildlife. In regards to the Okavango Delta, there are other research projects that are done
There is a research in the Gomoti area, in most of parts of the Okavango Delta, but per se into one of the camps that we go to, we have a presentation that our guest receives from the conservation project that is out of Gomoti camp.
Oh, that's really cool. Really exciting. I mean, could you tell us a little bit what they learned from that presentation? I'm kind of curious.
The project that they mostly deal with is African wild dog to kind of understand the dynamic pack, their color, different packs to understand how their territory affect each other, and also the dispersal pattern. Once they disperse, which direction do they go, and what are the challenges do they come across? Obviously, there is human and wildlife conflict. There is education, going to school and teaching kids about wildlife and conservation, even community engagement in regards to combat human and wildlife conflict. And one of the most interesting projects that has been done in the area was to paint the domestic cows with eyeballs at the back as a way of protecting the cow. And that has been very, very effective because once the lion sees the cow from behind, he thinks that the cow is looking at it. But the good thing is they didn't have to paint all of the cows because otherwise lions are going to realize that this can't be. They just painted quite a few, and those that were painted, none of them got predated.
Wow, that's incredible. Something as simple
Absolutely.
as just painting eyes. It's incredible what just how creative we can get as conservationists to help with conflict. That's awesome. And then going back to the
Yes.
filmlets, what was it like for you to have Justin come out and film you as you're trying to guide at the same time? What was that like for you?
He was great, nerve cracking, albeit nervous at the same time. Because I mean, I, I even asked myself, I mean, why did the company choose me to be documented? And I realized that there must be something special. Sometimes there are great things that you do that you don't see yourself, and people can see that, and they appreciate you from that angle, and that made me realize how important I am to the company, how important I am to our travelers, and the positive impact that I've contributed in the last 7 years of being an expedition leader. And I did with pride, and I tried my level best to engage and answer each and every single question that Justin asked me. Whatever he wanted or asked me to do, I did it with pride because I'm one person that I always strive to do everything to the best of my ability.
Well, it definitely showed in that film. I mean, like I said, I was smiling ear to ear, and I've only been able to chat a few times with you, and I'm just like, oh, I'm a fan. Let's is amazing. And so, what was your favorite part about creating the film?
I can't. I find it difficult to pick one. Um, it's I think everything about the film was great because every day was different. Every day was a different experience. And what I like about the film is it's so much diverse in terms of the activities we do, how we do our activities, and also what I like about it is that at least now our travelers understand me as an individual, not only as the expedition leader. And that's one thing that I always like my guests to leave, knowing that or understanding me as an individual, as an expedition leader, as a conservation ambassador, as a father, as a husband. There's deep connection.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's somehow the film was only 7 minutes, and yet I felt a deep connection with you, like I knew who you were, and that just also goes to show with going back to Justin right now. Just you were able to capture these moments, and like going back into the field when you were there, did you have any specific moments that really stuck with you, either while you were recording with Let's or a wildlife moment that just really moved you?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I know Let's what his favorite moment actually was. He just didn't want to say it. But when I made him wake up at 4 a.m., way before the first light, just so we can go and stand on the edge of the deck looking over. But no, he was an absolute champion throughout. The whole trip was great because the schedule was so jam packed with so many incredible experiences and adventures that we were on. So we got into a really good flow. I think I personally loved that moment when Let's and I spent just before first light, and we walked out onto that deck, and I remember saying to let's just sit here, let's just take like a moment to breathe, let's listen to the birds, and yeah, we sat there for a couple of minutes, and then I just asked him a few questions just to speak from the heart, and that was a I loved that moment. And we had the pie kingfisher that was fishing in the background, and it really, yeah, that was very special. But in general, I think the ambiance of our group was also amazing. So we had lots of laughs in between us. We were a small group, which was great as well. So yeah, I think maybe that moment stands out the most.
That's wonderful. And I think it's a rare opportunity for those of us who enjoy these films to have an opportunity to like go behind the curtain or behind the scene. From your perspective, what is it like to actually film in the wild? Like, how often do things go wrong? And what do you do when things go wrong? Do you have a story to go with that too?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I think whenever you're in the field, right, you're kind of on your own. So from a filming perspective, you're working with lots of tech. So you've got sound, you've got your lenses, you've got all this gear, and if one small thing goes wrong, yeah, you can be, you got to make a plan. But I would say that this trip was smooth, right? I don't think we had a single hiccup with anything. Everything went pretty smooth. We didn't break down anywhere. Yeah, it was a pretty smooth running trip. But yeah, I think if I look back on past experiences, and I'm very grateful that I get to spend a lot of time in nature filming. And so, yeah, if you ask a question, what could go wrong? Anything you can think of, getting stranded in places, breaking down, cameras getting mold on from the humidity. Yeah, there's a lot that can happen. But I think the overall experience of being able to be in nature and be able to capture moments that a lot of people pay a lot of money to travel around the world to see, and we get to live them and be part of them, and that's very special.
And if we could continue peeling back the curtain a little bit, what is the creative process? Like, are you going into the field with a set of shots that you're already ready to get, or do you just kind of see what happens with Let's? And maybe you can use this film as an example. Like, what was your mindset going into the field? You're like, I need to get this, this, and this, or do you just like see what happens and see what story comes out of it? I guess, what is your approach to putting together something like this?
Sure. Yeah, that's an awesome question. There was a fair amount of pre-production and planning that went into this from a level with myself and Andrew and a few others from NatHab, about the way we wanted to approach it. I think a lot of the moments that were captured in this film, let's interacting with the guests, the hugging, the saying goodbye, all of those were just natural moments, nothing planned. That just happened. I think what I really wanted to get into was I wanted to have good conversations with Let's, so we can talk about his history, so we can sort of unravel a bit of him and himself and his passions. And I think that was just time spent. You can't arrive on scene and just put a camera in someone's face and start diving into their history. And Let's and I were lucky that we had a bit of a connection before, and we'd even spoken a couple of times on WhatsApp. I think I was asking him about a song that I loved when I was last in Botswana, and he helped me find the song, and that kind of thing. So when we arrived, it was amazing because he looked at me. He's like, welcome back, brother. And it was a great feeling. So my whole intention behind the project was, I think, just to get Let's to be himself, to open up, and then just have the camera on hand and be ready to capture those moments.
Yeah, it definitely showed, especially the rapport that you two had. Those deep personal moments. So those are special to capture, and it's not that easy to do. So actually, I would like to change the conversation a little bit to Andrew. So would you want to introduce yourself as well? Could you talk a little bit more about your background and how you got into film editing? Like, what do you do? That's a very critical part of all of this.
Yeah, hey everyone. Yeah, I'm the video editor here at NatHab, and I am so happy to be a part of this webinar and just be a part of the really amazing video content that NatHab is producing. Yeah, I mean, I grew up just glued to the TV more or less as a kid, whether that was watching um, movies, cartoons, and just a ton of nature documentaries. I mean, I feel like I grew up in the golden age of Animal Planet, Discovery, Nat Geo, and Steve Irwin was definitely someone I looked up to, the crocodile hunter. So, um, yeah, I mean, I went to school, changed majors a few times, but kind of settled on what I believe to be my passion, which was filmmaking. So, went to University of Wisconsin for that. Um, Worked a few different editing jobs doing various commercials and documentaries and things like that, and uh, saw the job listing for NatHab, and everything kind of came back to me with my nature doc love for nature documentaries in my early childhood, um, and thought it would be just the coolest opportunity to work on similar projects and just be looking through a computer screen, which is, that's my career anyways. But if you're going to look through your computer screen all day, why not have it be elephants and lions and polar bears? And I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better editing gig. So yeah, it's just been really, really fun to work with the footage that Justin and our other videographers with NatHab bring back to me. It's really a privilege.
Yeah, it's amazing when we find our calling and how we're all attached to NatHab, but in our own very specific ways. It's really cool. And like I'm sitting down with you three to talk about this beautiful film and all of our backgrounds that have led us to this moment. It's really cool in retrospect to think about those kinds of things. So to keep on what you do, so let's go back. Justin has just delivered you the film, all of the raw material. What is your creative process from there? Did you again have a script that you went through and you're like, okay, these are the scenes, Justin went out there, filmed X, Y, or Z? Or was it the opposite where you're like, oh, he got all of this other stuff. Now we need to make a film that looks like this. So yeah, could you take us through that? How did you start to put this whole thing together?
Yeah, I mean, so Justin, you know, gives me all the footage, and we're just looking at hours and hours. We're talking maybe 20 hours of footage plus to sift through. So a good analogy is maybe like an archaeological dig, or like, digging for dinosaur bones, right? You got to get through a lot of, no offense, Justin. I mean, most of it's really, really great. So when I say we got to get through some dirt to get to the good stuff, uh, that's kind of what it is. I'm looking through all this footage and keeping in my mind moments that really pop out at the screen to me, whether that's just a moment of let's with guests and everybody's smiling, and I say, hey, that's just a really great moment, I'm gonna mark that and keep that in the back of my mind. Or I'm going through his interview as well, and just leaving as many notes as possible to help me start to think about where we can go with the story here. So there's a lot of work right out of the gate to just sift through and get to the best parts of what Justin was able to get out in the field with Let's, and some of those more like really engaging wildlife moments, like coming upon that pride of lions, I thought really stood out to me as well. And then we do have with NatHab as well other editors that work with us, and sometimes I actually don't even have to do all the dirty work of going and taking notes. So that's not something that I always have to do. But it is the most important part of going through footage, is doing what we call the select process. That's what it's called here.
Okay, great. So then was it you and multiple NatHab team members that were piecing this together? Was Justin and Let's part of this process? Or I guess that again, more peeling back behind
Mhm.
the curtain. So those of us that just see this beautiful film, you're like, wait, how did you actually put this thing together? So like, how did you start to piece it and end with the end product?
Yeah, so yeah, one thing that to keep in mind with documentaries is a lot of the times you go into the filming process with an idea of what the story is going to be, at least a rough idea of what the story is going to be. And sometimes you just go somewhere and you conduct an interview with a lot of different questions, and uh, the story actually happens in the editing room, and that's kind of what happened with this video. Um, so I mean, I kind of went rogue with with taking over the project and trying to piece together a story that I thought would be the most engaging. And then once I kind of get to a point where I'm like, all right, I think I'm really digging where this story is going, then I send it out to the rest of the team to get some feedback on it, and we kind of bounce ideas off each other from there, to kind of come to the final project. We leave a lot of feedback, a lot of tweaks and changes and retiming areas, finding more interesting shots for various areas, adding in sound effects, adding in music. So it's really there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get it to the point that all of you saw today. Um, but it's so much fun to try and like Let's says in the video, put together a puzzle more or less. Um, that's the way I see it.
Justin, I see that you have your nice little hand raised. Go ahead, go on in.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you, Andrew. So over the last couple of projects, every now and then when I make, well, obviously when I make lots of mistakes, or the footage you have to sift through, but when I make a mistake or when I shoot for too long, or I often like whisper into the camera, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, Andrew, or I'll comment to my character and be like, well, Andrew's gonna hate that. And I'm just curious, do you ever hear that commentary, or am I speaking too quietly?
Um, I'll be honest with you. I speed through it pretty quickly.
Okay.
I don't think I've heard any of that, but now I'm gonna purposefully listen to every little bit of footage you come with, just so I get that apology. Like I feel like I got that. Like, oh,
So,
I was waiting on, you left the camera on for 10 minutes by accident.
sure.
No,
Because obviously sometimes we're trying to capture a certain moment, whether it's like a lion walking through grass and you're hoping something's going to happen. And, I
mhm.
sometimes roll for quite long and I feel really bad for the editor. So I'll often just sneak a little apology in there. So at least next time.
Well, just so you know, yeah, I mean, I'll either kind of fast forward through it or I'll take the playhead and basically scrub. I can kind of see where the important moments are, so I'm not really paying attention to audio at that moment.
Yeah, sure.
While I have both of you here, I would like to throw this question to both of you. What do you do when you load all the film and there's a shot that you missed and you can't go back and film it? How do you handle that situation?
Andrew, do you want to go first?
I I think that was directed towards Justin. Could you rephrase that
Yeah,
one more time, Brooke, please?
I
Oh,
was
just
just
to
deferring.
either of you. Just to
Yeah, no,
either of you. Like, what do you
I was
do? No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think my motto, and it's quite funny, is that if I miss a shot, the way I kind of see it is that, okay, well, Andrew only sees the footage that I get, so Andrew won't know that I missed the shot. So whatever happened in Botswana stays in Botswana. It's part of it's just part of it. Sometimes you miss shots. You can't really beat yourself up about it too much. It's also really important not to spend too much time on trying to get one shot right. There's no point spending 2 hours trying to get one shot of one European bee eater landing on a twig, because although it'll be a spectacular shot, there's so much more that happens in that time. So yeah, I think filmmaking's a game of a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and I think it's just part of it.
It's
Yeah, he
great.
answered it
Well,
great. Yeah, I can only work with the footage that I get, and yeah, if Justin, his camera's facing this way and the cool thing happened behind him, I'll never know.
well then my next question I would love to just open to all of you. Let's Justin and Andrew. What would you like us to take away from this film and this experience?
I can weigh in a little bit because one thing that stood out to me when I was going through the footage and going through the interview is something that we don't see on every shoot, and that's that the fact that Let's has such an amazing personality, and it really kind of just comes through the camera and presents itself just very obviously. The way he interacts with his guests, the way he talks about the wildlife, the way he gets excited when he sees the lions, that's not really something that like we always get on every single shoot. So when I went to edit, I thought, well, we could tell the story of his life. We could talk about conservation in Botswana. There's a lot of different ways we could go with it, but because it was such a special moment that we captured on camera with Let's and the guests, I wanted to make a video that really focused on the fact that a NatHab guide is more than just a guide, and that sometimes I've gone on a few NatHab trips now, very lucky to have done so, but I come away from the trip just thinking about like the guide and how amazing our guide was, and I want to tell everybody about our guide, and they're like, "That's great, but what wildlife did you see? What were the mountains like? What was this like?" And in my head, I'm like, it was really the guide that made that trip like even more special to me. So I really think that this video does a good job showcasing that part of NatHab, because it's such a really, really special part of why I think that NatHab trips are so exciting to begin with, and so engaging and so special. That's just what I'd like to say about the video is Let's presented just the most amazing image of himself on camera. We just had to use that to really highlight how amazing our guides are.
Wonderful. Justin or Let's, either of you, what would you like us to take away from this experience?
Let's you go for it, brother.
My greatest hope is that this experience will inspire our travelers to travel more with us, because they play an impact, a great impact, a positive one for that matter, in regards to conservation. And also, I wish it's a film or the experience that will help other expedition leaders to do even better in what they're already doing. Because obviously, as expedition leaders, we never stop, learning. We never stop growing, and most importantly, we even learn from each other, which is great, because we are not competitive among ourselves.
Beautiful. Justin, what about you?
Yeah, I think a takeaway I would like people to take with them after watching this film is, and it actually relates to that one of the opening scenes with the lions. That was a very unique experience because it was the last morning of our trip. We had a flight in 2 or 3 hours time, and Let's asked if anyone wants to go out for a quick drive, and all the guests said no. And then Suzanne said, actually, I want to go. And so I was kind of happy, we had an amazing trip. I got all the footage I needed. I was happy to stay at camp and just get some more footage at the waterhole. But I thought to myself, hey, it's an opportunity. Let me take it. And that experience was awesome. You do not get to see that every day. And then to experience that with Andrew, our photographer that was there with us, and Let's and Suzanne was just amazing. And I think I walked away from that just thinking, you've got to grasp these opportunities while they're there, as much as possible. And I think that this film also shows that, if you have the opportunity to have these experiences, you've got to do it, especially in Africa, because Africa is a place you have to experience once, at least once in your life.
I could not agree more with that. I've been multiple times and I'm still like scheming how I can get back. Been to Botswana, Namibia, Tanzania, South Africa, and yeah, still I'm like, I can't get enough. I cannot get enough.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, those were my questions that I have for this group. So I would love to open it up to everybody. So in your questions field there in your GoToWebinar control panel there is a questions field. Go ahead and submit whatever you would like to ask right now to Let's, Justin, or Andrew. We have 3 incredible guys here that do amazing things in the field, around the field, in the office that are all very important for conservation. So go ahead and throw those in. Right now we have a little bit of a quiet audience, but otherwise people who just really, really love you, Let's. Lots of comments of just how moved you've made people by visiting you over abroad. While we are waiting for people to go ahead and put their questions in, does anybody have any funny stories that you have that just really made you laugh, either on this trip or another time in the bush that you would like to share?
Yeah, when I was filmed, I knew it was going to be a good film, but I only learned that it was a great film when Justin says to me, "Let's, you're not gonna believe this. You need to move. You need to relocate to to Hollywood." That was funny.
Gonna be a superstar.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see here.
Yeah.
So this is a good question. So this one is for you, Let's. What was the process for you to become a guide? So like, what is the actual like process for a guide in Botswana to become a guide? And then how did you get hired by NatHab?
Oh, that's a good question. I went to college first to study hospitality and tourism. Thereafter, I went to Botswana Wildlife Training Institute, which is a government institute that trains guides. And I was very, very fortunate to be among the 30 students that they can only accommodate or take a year. That's how I became a guide. And from there, I went to work for Wilderness Safari. The first camp that I went to was Dua Plains in 2007. And while I was there for the first few days, there was an expedition leader that came with his guests. Um, his name is Victor Horatius. Um, I saw him wearing the brand. I looked at it and made a promise to myself that 10 years down the line, I want to see myself wearing. So in 2017, in March 2017, um, I joined NetApp as an expedition leader. So I've been with NetApp for almost 8 years now, which has been a great journey and the greatest decision that I've ever made in my guiding career.
Wow. Yeah. Talk about manifesting your dream. I feel like that's a big
I did.
takeaway to this whole thing, right? And we have another question here. If somebody in the audience, or if there's multiple people in the audience, where they're contemplating becoming a guide themselves, a nature and wildlife guide, what tips would you have for them as they are looking to start their journey?
The number one, I always say, you got to be the people's person. You should have interpersonal skills that will help you to know how, to be there for your guests. That's very important. And I never say knowledge. I say be the people's person, be passionate about what you do, because with passion you can gain knowledge, but with knowledge you can gain passion.
Wow, that was a quote to walk away from, everybody. I put that on a post-it note on my mirror. Like that's a really good one. All right, Justin, this one is for you. How do you balance excited guests and maybe the audio that you're trying to capture at the same time? So, like, how do you manage a situation when you're working with people and in nature and you're trying to capture both?
Oh, sure. In terms of wanting to record audio, I imagine, of natural sounds and everything out there. Look, when we're filming with NatHab on these trips, I'm just rolling audio the whole time. I don't think it's ever too necessary for me to ever focus on trying to record, let's say, a lion roaring or whatever it may be. All of that stuff is something we can always get at another time. So it's pretty I'd say it's pretty easy doing filming on these trips. Most importantly, we just want to make sure that we're all having a good time. And so I'm not actually too concerned about the audio. But it's a good question, because on projects where audio is very important and you are working with other people, that, whether it's someone who's driving you or a researcher, and even the slightest bump in the vehicle makes a sound, and it becomes difficult. But on these trips, it's not an issue at all.
Good, Andrew?
Yeah, and I totally realize that, and that's why sometimes I'll try to add some nature sounds and sound effects to the final video, because sometimes you just hear the engine of the safari vehicle over what it is, but we can kind of drown that and add in natural sounds from our sound library, and that should add to like the ambience that you're feeling during the video. So but more importantly, it's good to get the guests, talking and reacting, and being surprised or laughing, or that's so important to get to kind of feel how everyone's feeling in that moment.
Yeah, using audio to help that other sense to have feeling and emotion. That's a really good way to do that. Absolutely. This is a good question. Is your daughter at all interested in becoming a guide too?
Um, Not really. She wanna be a psychologist. That's what
Oh,
she wanna
wow.
be. She hasn't mentioned being a guide, but she loves nature. They love nature. So is my son. He likes dogs. He likes pets in general, cats, you name it.
That's awesome. Um, Speaking of, that was perfect timing, right on cue. Dog's like, I'm here. I'm available. Uh, this is a fun question for you, Let's. Do you have a favorite animal or bird?
I'm obsessed with elephants. Not just about their physical appearance, their size, but the role that they play in the ecosystem. Because the areas where we operate, elephants have played a role in decades, if not centuries, for the area to change. Because obviously, the area has to change in order for it to survive and also accommodate other species. Hence, we refer to elephants as ecosystem engineers because of how they change the environment. So I never even mentioned to my guests that elephants are destructive. I don't see them as being destructive because they know what they're doing. They can't destroy the environment that they rely on. So every leaf that they feed on is for a reason. Every branch that they break, a tree they take down, they do it for the purpose of nature, in order to take care of nature.
Yeah, I remember that drawing that you had of that. Oh, Justin, oh, there you are. Yeah, go ahead.
You were mentioning the drawing.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so this is the original drawing from the film that I knew was a good idea to keep. So yeah, this is my sort of personal memorabilia that I want to frame. Okay.
Is it autographed?
Amazing.
It is. It is autographed. I need to get Les to put his quote on there now as well.
Yes. All right, let's see here. Um, okay. This is a pretty good general question. So this one is for you, Justin, that you mentioned that everybody should go to Africa at least once. So what about going to Africa excites you so much that everybody should experience at least once in their life?
Yeah, I mean, Africa is a huge continent with so many different biomes, so many different experiences. So I think just on that alone, it's an incredible continent to visit. It depends on your preference. What do you love the most? Do you love, more swampy areas? You like mountains, forests? That, like, you name it, Africa's got it. But I think just the pure element of our wilderness areas, the amount of species. I mean, we've got the most incredible mammals, that you get to also experience in certain parts of Africa, in some of the wildest parts of Africa. These animals are pretty much completely wild, and you get this opportunity to be in their presence, and that's very special. Every country, every continent around the world's got animals, but Africa does have something special. It's hard to recommend an exact country to go to because they really are all very different. But I would say the Okavango Delta is definitely up there on top of the list.
I absolutely agree with that statement. I mean, even the same country at different times of year are just completely different. Like, I finally experienced green season East Africa, and I'm like completely head over heels in love. And I've also experienced all the dry seasons, and I'm just like, there's not a bad time. I don't think. They're just different, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it looks like the questions have stopped rolling in here. So, everybody, thank you for submitting those. So, I would like to turn it to our three amazing panelists here for last closing comments. So, what would you like us to take away from this webinar today?
I'm grateful that the three of us we've been present in this webinar. At least it completes the puzzle of how the documentary was done. And my greatest hope is to also do another webinar pretty soon, and just to appreciate the opportunity that I've been given um, for the video, and it's a lifetime experience. I don't take it for granted.
Beautiful. Luckily, you're talking to the right person to make that happen. So we will chat. Don't you worry about that. You'll all hear more let's. I'll make sure of it. So Justin, what are your last closing comments for the webinar?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say I'm really grateful to Let's, and I'm honored to have been there to tell your story, brother. It was really an incredible journey, and I'm also so grateful to Andrew for bringing it to life. So I think, yeah, just very grateful to have been able to work with such two incredible people on this project, and yeah, it's exciting to see many more films like this come in the future.
All right, and Andrew, what are your last closing comments for us?
Yeah, thank you to everyone who attended this webinar, who watched the video on YouTube, the website. It's great to see that people are interested in these kinds of stories. And they're from all around the world. They can be conservation stories, they can be, bigger documentaries, and they can be videos just getting to know one of our guides. So thank you to everyone who's interested in our video content at NatHab. Please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to that, because we have so many more amazing videos that we can't wait to share with you all. And there was a lot left on the cutting room floor with Let's, so you shouldn't be surprised if maybe there's a few more Let's style videos that trickle out. You'll see maybe a little bit more of them, spoilers, down the road.
Well, I want to thank you three so much for sitting down with me and taking the time to go through this beautiful film and sharing your story. And I would like to thank everybody who tuned in. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and I will have that replay available on our website soon and directly into your inbox. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.